allow, for them to spend from the previous year's budget even up to 6 months into the following year. So doesn't that just give the executive arm of government some leeway to keep spending, operating the 2016 budget while the legislature works on the 2017 budget?
Mark, very frankly, I am not aware of any such law in Nigeria that permits for the expenditure of a budget, which is actually made for 12 months, to be extended to the next year. I mean, the budget is law itself, and it does not provide for such extension. At any rate, it creates financial indiscipline. It means we are not serious. I mean, budget is supposed to guide us, to guide our thoughts, guide our actions, and guide our activities. That way, you allow for a system in which there can be the rule of the thumb.
You just said it.
It's actually fiscal indiscipline, because budget ought to instill discipline in the system so that between January and December, you plan your expenditure, and all money not spent during that time should return to Treasury for reappropriation.
Well, you just said that the budget is supposed to run for 12 months. If it started operation in May 2016, has it run for 12 months as of December?
Well, I mean, the National Assembly was not prevented from passing the budget in January 1. I mean, if you permit a system in which the National Assembly can just extend the budget year by the whims and caprices of its principal officers, the tendency, therefore, is to work danger and work directly against an existing law which defines Nigeria financial year as January 1 to December 31. That law has not been amended, it has not been repealed. Anything to the contrary is indiscipline.
Now, I'm looking at finance in this budget, and recall that the president has said he would borrow about 2.32 trillion naira.
Yes.
And out of that loan, 1.06 trillion naira will be external loan. Another 1.25 trillion naira will be sourced within Nigeria. Loads of comments have been coming concerning the borrowing of loan and how we can finance this. And if you look at the budget, you say one of the good things about this budget is that it's going to take care of some of those repayments for the year 2017, and that also somehow help the economy out of perhaps a recession. Let's talk more on that and see how much that can help us. If we talk about some critical infrastructure that this budget is set to take care of, because we also saw power works and housing, we saw the transportation sector, as well as a couple of others that were really given some chunk of money to see that such infrastructure are put in place for us. How well will this help the economy as it stands now?
Each time a government borrows, you look first into for what purpose. Because borrowing is not necessarily bad economics. Deficit financing is not necessarily bad economics. That you are spending more than you actually earn does not mean that you are a bad planner. Government has advertised that it intends to spend what it has borrowed on critical infrastructure. And it has prioritized this in the areas of works and housing, as well as the areas of internal security and in education. For example, 7.2% of this budget expenditure size will go into works and housing, and then about 6.6% into internal security, and then about 6.3% to defense and 6.1% into education. This is good. If you look at the social expenditure content of this budget, it's also 500 billion naira will go into social, safety nets. I think it's salutary. In this year's budget, too, 2016 budget, the same was provided, but I think the government was not able to implement all. I suspect the government actually spent about 200 billion in that area, meaning that it was just about 40% in terms of social infrastructure. So it will help the government, it will help the country if 2.3 trillion is borrowed, and the purpose for borrowing this, if it is for infrastructure and not for consumption, not for the payment of salaries, then that purpose would have been well made.
Yeah, I think Margaret has a question. Margaret?
Well, there are those who still quarrel with that. I recall former President Olusegun Obasanjo looking at the borrowing plan, and he's not very keen on borrowing. And he says that the infrastructure we even want to spend money on is not, it doesn't look like it will be able to pay for itself on the long haul. Do you agree with him on that?
I disagree absolutely.